Chapter 4. The Unity of God and Man. In the past we have dealt with God and man as two instead of one, and in dealing with just one, man has always been placed in a secondary position. Yet man, or manifestation, is the only visible evidence that there is a God. If we will replace the word God with the word good, we will be able to unify God and man to our entire satisfaction. In fact, in the ultimate analysis, you will discover that there is but one, and that one is the spiritual man, a godlike man, demonstrating the omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent principle of good called God. We are speaking with new tongues for absolute truth in revealing demonstrable facts. Jesus Christ represented the perfect unity of God and man. He was a perfect specimen of humanity who went about his business doing good. Hence, he and God, good, were one. He spoke with authority because he understood that there was none other than himself. He included God or good within himself and demonstrated it. The inclination of most students of truth is to try to become absorbed in deity, thereby losing all regard for the manifestation and failure to demonstrate as the result. Why should you regard more than yourself if you are his perfect image? We can never demonstrate the principle of being until we make our at-one-ment or atonement with it. And we can never make our atonement until we cease looking upon God other than an ever-active principle of good to be utilized in every walk of life. A realization of the fact that God is not a separate being, but is the omnipresent power of good, will dispel forever a belief in the power of a so-called evil, and humanity will be free from the sense of duality. It does not matter whether we refer to this unity as God and man, mind and its idea, cause and effect, spirit and identity, or father and son, for these terms all refer to the one changeless principle and its idea which coexist. These terms also apply to the one spiritual man who expresses that principle is. The idea of the numeral 2 is just as infinite as the principle of mathematics. Hence man is just as infinite as the principle which he expresses. As long as we believe that God is superior to man, we can never unify the two, and neither can man express power. It is obvious that one cannot be greater than the other, and at the same time be alike. The use of the term principle in defining deity has more of a tendency to impersonalize the infinite being than the use of the word God, hence the frequency with which it is used. Always bear in mind that the word God means good, for it will help you to revere universal good instead of confining your worship to the one term God. God is not a distant potentate with whom you must plead or pray to in order to live in harmony. It is unfortunate the pronoun he was ever used in connection with God, for it gives one an incorrect sense of God as a person. God is an ever-living, ever-active, and changeless principle, the omnipotence, omnipresence, and omniscience of your own mind. In referring to God as spirit, soul, intelligence, principle, life, truth, and love, you cannot ignore the fact that these are terms used to describe and define someone's conception of deity. You may accept these opinions and base your reason upon their conception, but do not lose sight of another fact, that you are always acting and depending upon your own conclusions. Nothing exists to you except your conception of that thing. All conceptions are dependent upon your own consciousness, even your conception of God. You are either expressing power or lacking it according to your conscious realization of the truth. Naturally, to discover that there is no power other than your mind, consciousness, is to make your atonement with all power. You not only have all power, but you actually are all power, for mind is individual as well as universal, if it is all. Since principle good cannot reflect or express anything but itself, it is logical to presume that the reflection or expression must be principle itself. If you stand before a mirror, you see yourself. Consciousness is the mirror in which principle or mind reflects its ideas, and that reflection is man. If it were possible to reflect all the principle good in a mirror, that which you would see would be yourself, God's reflection. Your perfect understanding of God is your mental mirror. In this understanding, you perceive or see ideas, and these ideas are realities in tangible form, substance, and color. Do you not realize the immensity and totality of your own mind? Can you not see that the divine mind you have been worshiping is your own conscious mind? All color, form, and substance is within you. It is your own principle or mind that you must demonstrate, for it includes all of the things which you desire. Man is mind's consciousness, the means by which mind acts, thinks, appreciates its own idea. Man is what mind knows about itself. Man is mind's own self-contemplation. Man is mind's demonstration of itself. The Christ is the real man, and that is what you and I are. We have been deceived long enough into believing we are sinful mortals struggling to become spiritual enough to be even recognized by principle. We have been told that the infinite cannot know the finite. Certainly not, for there are no finite beings. Jesus said, "You are gods, and the Scripture cannot be broken." And Paul said, "You are the wisdom, knowledge, and power of God." Let us claim this power and act as though we were spiritual beings here and now. You cannot have a single thing until you claim it. You cannot act like the Christ until you realize that you are the Christ, the true idea of good. These are powerful statements, but we must declare the whole truth or none at all. The warfare between spirit and matter has waged long enough to awaken people to the truth about themselves. It is ridiculous to go on declaring that good is all in all, and then continue to believe in a separate mortal man, whom these same individuals recognize as the creation of a mythical mortal mind. If we accept a false premise of a material man, subject to sin, sickness, and death, we can never expect to demonstrate the Christ in our midst. Unless you can resurrect the I of you and include it in principle, and find principle as your own mind, you have no place in the atonement. Jesus proved that his real self, the Christ, was not subject to material belief. You and I must fearlessly declare the truth about ourselves, without making any apologies or without reference to either spirit or matter. There are not two of you, so why be concerned about either? Is it not sufficient to realize that you just are? And when you discover that you are mind's consciousness, you will eliminate all sense of a separate self, and your undivided attention will be given to yourself. Principle is not in you, and you are not in principle, except in the same sense that you refer to the principle of mathematics as being one with its numerals, and the numerals being one with the principle. They coexist in your consciousness. When you discover the absolute truth about God and man as one, you will have unified them in your own consciousness, and then you are free. Free from what? Free from the false sense of a separate self. Individuals fail to demonstrate the kingdom of God, or the perfect state of mind, because do they not accept the kingdom of God as their own state of mind? If the kingdom of God is within you, then it must be your own realm of consciousness. Accept it, demonstrate it. There is far too much time wasted in words in an attempt to explain nothing. The author is making no attempt to elaborate upon this subject other than to arouse sufficient interest to cause individuals to appreciate the power resident within their own consciousness. The average individual depreciates himself by giving more credit to others than he claims for himself. We must consciously release everything upon which we have depended if we wish to demonstrate self-reliance. The uttermost farthing must be paid by surrendering every conception to the power of your own mind. It is not necessary to go into detail in an effort to explain the nothingness of error and the allness of God, for there are very fine textbooks that dwell extensively upon the subject of mortal mind and error. To be very frank with you, since I understand the power of my own mind, it is impossible to even acknowledge an illusory premise upon which to base any legitimate cause for the existence of nothing called mortal mind. Throughout the Bible we read that man is spiritual, that when Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall ye also appear with him in glory. Christ has appeared in consciousness, for we have discovered the truth which is the Christ. Then shall ye also appear with him in glory means this: when we discover the absolute truth about ourselves, then this visible man ye shall also appear in glory, for we shall see him as he is in heaven. In other words, we will no longer look upon ourselves as material being, but we will behold ourselves in scientific understanding as the perfect man here and now. This correct view will enable us to overcome the world just as Jesus overcame it while he apparently lived in the flesh. It is quite evident that when you are working out a problem in arithmetic, that the principle of mathematics is not changing, neither is it creating any more combinations of numbers. It simply means that you are aware of more combinations, and as you proceed in your solution, you regroup the numbers. This will serve to illustrate man's relationship to principle. Man stands in the same relationship to principle mind as the principle of mathematics stands to its numbers. The two coexist, for one cannot exist without the other. That which is appearing as a new creation in the manifest world is simply the revelation to consciousness of distant ideas of truth. Man becomes conscious of the idea which always were complete, tangible, and real mind. He always possessed all things in substance, but had never become conscious of them. At the time that people rode in ox carts, the airplane existed in the same place, in the same mind, simultaneously, but no one had conceived the idea. As man conceived clear ideas of transportation or movements, it has appeared as though new creations were presented in the forms of carriages, steam locomotives, etc., up to our present mode of transportation. Nothing has really happened except individuals have enlarged their conception and are in a better state of consciousness. Instead of adding new creations, we are actually putting off the old man with his deeds and rapidly approaching a demonstration of the instantaneous action of mind. Just as the principle of mathematics would be of no avail without the numerals, principle would be a non-entity without its manifestation called man. It is quite obvious that the principle of mathematics is no respecter of numerals. In fact, it cannot conceive of them as separate from itself. If we make a mistake in mathematics, there is no use in pleading with the principle to adjust our problem. Some principle cannot conceive of its manifestation as separate from itself. It stands to reason that it is impersonal and has the same regard for one as for all. Since it can be aware of nothing but its own perfect manifestation, it is conclusive that it cannot conceive of anything in the form of a problem to be adjusted. The sooner we realize these facts, the sooner we will cease looking to God for help, and the greater effort we'll make to harmonize our conception with mind and be free.